Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm back. I wasn't here last Friday because MCAT had a Spring Flicks camp going on last week. We had over 48 minutes worth of short films created by the kids themselves and some of the counselors to oversee them. We have our summer camp program that is going to be happening this summer as well. There's still plenty of room in a lot of our camps, so sign up today if you want to. It is a great experience for a lot of kids to get involved with media and work in movie making, video editing, and all that kind of stuff. And we just kind of put it in the terms of like stop animation, and that's always a good entry point for a lot of kids to learn editing and stuff like that. So enough of promoting and everything. I hope you guys had a wonderful week. This is the last day of March. It is March 31st, 2023. There's definitely a lot going on, and last night former President Trump has been indicted. Thursday, for the weekend announcement for allegedly paying porn star Stormy Daniels $130,000 worth of hush money during the 2016 campaign, former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen, otherwise known from the media as his fixer, came forward in 2018 about the hush money payments being funded through the Trump Organization and spent about 2 years before the 2 years in jail before COVID hit, and he was able to be transferred to house arrest. Cohen will be a key witness to Donald Trump's case in New York, has been building towards for some time now, and Stormy Daniels was just part of the nearly $500,000 Michael Cohen worked with over the 2016 short period. The future most likely will have Trump give himself up, make bail or whatever, and return to doing his thing until the trial needs him to take the stand, which he's basically avoided taking any kind of stand since he became president. Before Trump can turn himself in, security measures by local officials in New York and the Secret Service will have to make sure it's safe for the former president to get reined in and sworn and all that stuff. So while we're dealing with the former President Trump issues over here, from peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia to standing strong with Russia in their new world order, China and many countries are seeing the appeal of the Chinese influence, aka money. NPR reports that the takeaway from President Putin and President Xi of Russia and China was a joint economic cooperation statement published after the visit stressed the two countries would seek to increase their local currency, such as the Chinese yuan, rather than the US dollar, to settle cross-border trade, including for oil and gas. That took a big major push forward, as in many South American countries also moved towards helping China and being part of their economy as well. This is a big move to pull away from the global money standards to recognize the yuan as a form of currency in the international scale. Currency translated outside the countries, but currency is usually translated outside the countries, but outside countries don't translate to the yuan currently. So the US dollar, pound for the UK, and the euro, to name a few, are pretty much the standards when it comes to the global banks. China created their 12-point plan for peace in the Ukraine with Chinese influence is only going to get stronger. Chinese seem to be very neutral in the fact that Chinese regional neighbor Japan has thrown in support behind Ukraine, while President Xi was in Moscow. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida made a surprise trip to Kyiv, Ukraine, to meet with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Lines seem to be drawn between many countries in life. There are no friends between countries, just temporary alliances. And also, Vladimir Zelensky also invited Chinese President Xi of China to visit Ukraine to plead their case, and in many ways, Chinese haven't shown any favorability in keeping conflict going, even though they have supported Russia. It's kind of like having a friend who gets a bad haircut and everybody kind of hates them, except for China, who's like, these people were never your friends. I got your back. So, I've been having a lot more fun imagining the world leaders as high school mean girls. It makes the days easier in a lot of ways, and Kim Jong-un is the goth guru who cuts themselves to get attention. Moving on, the U.S. South was met with tornadoes that left 26 dead and damage across Mississippi and Alabama. So this is a lot to do with weather. Reports have come that tornadoes devastated a swath of towns in the Rolling Fork, Mississippi, reducing homes to piles of rubble, flipping cars on their sides, and toppling the town's water tower. Residents hunkered down in bathtubs and hallways during the Friday night storm, and later broke into the John Deere store that they converted into a triage center for the wounded. So there's definitely a lot going on right there. And the Weather Channel didn't mince words to basically protect your life. Take cover now in all caps. The supercell that produced the deadly disaster also appeared to produce tornadoes that caused damage in northwest and North Central Alabama, said Brian Squirrely, severe storm forecaster with the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. We are getting major storms across the U.S. Even parts of LA's have seen tornado-like storms popping up in areas that really see these weather patterns. A tornado that tore through Montebello, California, in Los Angeles County last Wednesday, damaging buildings and cars in part of the country that doesn't really frequently see tornadoes. And so far, it was about 2 to 3 minutes long during brunch time. The storm was about to pick up some debris, from ever so slightly. But, there's only been about 44 tornadoes in Los Angeles County from 1950 to 2021, which comes out as less than 1 per year. Most were classified as weak and resulting few to no injuries. But also, let's bring it back to Montana, which had a pretty intense tornado back in the Metro Park back in 2010. Remember when the dome was basically torn off the roof of one of their event center in Billings, Montana? That basically summed up the cost of $27 million last time the tornado happened there was in 1958. So it ain't impossible, but weather events tend to be unpredictable when it comes to Montana and, frankly, the rest of the world. And speaking of Montana, Governor Greg Gianforte visited Missoula on Wednesday to discuss the needs for more affordable housing as more and more people plan to move to Montana, making it harder to compete with demand with housing in general, not to mention affordable homes, which for a time was basically starter homes for a lot of families, and now forget about the concept of starter homes, and there's a lot of those homes are forever homes for people just trying to get into building their own equity through their own home. So Gianforte, in conjunction with their legislation session, said he would sign a bill into law that would promote better zoning to accommodate the backlog of development that has slowed for various reasons, explained Councilwoman Sandra Vasica. Quote, "One of the big problems is that there is so much development going on and there is a huge backlog with it. A lot of things that my colleagues and I disagree on is the inclusionary zone and subsidized housing. Fortunately, a lot of the council does agree with rezoning requests and have more info so that there's something that I'm happy about," end quote. Gianforte was touring some of the new apartments Wednesday with an eager to get some of the sweeping house reforms passed for communities to help bolster the supply of housing to combat the demand. Overall, many issues are facilitated to those who wait, unfortunately. As the weather started warming up for spring break last Friday, snow eventually did come back, so we had a couple really nice days during the actual spring break in Missoula, but we're getting into more of the whole colder weather. The snow is not here anymore. A lot of the rains are coming in. It's cold. It's kind of miserable out there. But I'm going to show you a nice short film that the kids have made. It is a pretend, kind of harkens back into the days of, finger guns. So without further ado, here is pretend fight, gun, all that kind of stuff. And when I come back, we're going to talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend.
Ah, what a beautiful day. The sun is incredible. Oh. Hey there. Nice day we're having, huh? Hey guys, I don't want any trouble. Come with me if you want to live. Pew 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 pew. Go, I'll cover you. Bang, 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 bang. What are we doing? We're playing the finger gun game. I thought we can't do that. But we are. Get there, I brought my legs in. Oh, I brought his lightsaber. That's not fair. Bang, bang. I got hit. No, you're not. Yeah, I'm just pretending I got hit. Oh. Come on, we gotta get more ground. on, you're gonna get yourself to 10 kills. I don't know what we're doing! Just hold your finger out and go pew pew. Pew pew! Oh, I got hit. You're gonna be okay, alright? You're gonna be fine. No, I'm not gonna pretend die here. I'm gonna pretend live forever. What happened? He got hit! He's dead, I think! When did we get him a machine gun? Why wasn't he using it this entire time? I don't know! I got a crazy idea. Why you're not gonna like it. Go on without me! No! End of the line! No! Grenade! This grenade's for you! Ah! Grenade! Ah! RPG! Like tomorrow, maybe? It was fun. I think we should do that again.
It's time for summer in Montana, and why wait when MCAT is offering summer kids programs for the months of July and August. For 3 weeks, we will bring back our stop animation camps for kids getting used to production and video editing, followed by our horror camp for more advanced filmmakers. But that's not all.
Wonder how long he's gonna keep us waiting.
Yeah, he just keeps staring out that window.
Through these camps, kids will learn how to create stories and bring them to life, make lasting friendships along the way.
Let's go!
Log on to MCAT.org to sign up or call us at 542-MCAT. Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. But before that, I just wanted to say that I totally missed out on John Wick Chapter 4, so I'm going to give it a little bit of crap right now. It's like, if you want to watch a 3-hour movie where Keanu Reeves maybe only has about 300 words throughout the entire span of the 3.5 hours, 20 hours that you're watching basically mindless gun violence, this movie for you. Don't think about it. Just buy products. Buy movies. Moving on. Let's jump right into some movies. Kicking things off, and speaking of products, D&D is big, and they're going to kind of match the energy of their best YouTube campaigns as it follows a ragtag group of adventurers in a world that has too many rules and even fewer solutions as storyteller in this improv style of movie making that allows the actors to take some liberties. So I love it when actors take liberties in their character. Imagine Curb Your Enthusiasm, but with terrible and aimless shoehorn drama to make you care about characters who are just there because they played D&D once. Then we got Tetris. Hey, let's simplify the gaming and just not do a lot of thinking. So remember that when the Russians invented Tetris? Nothing really happened, but an inception with the video game grew out of Soviet Russia as we watched the Spatial Reasoning, the movie, made young boys see patterns and obsess over those patterns, possibly create a new generation of obsessive-compulsive disorders. Imagine all of that and watch as a product broke down barriers with a simple game that people have played that basically had the Russians dunk on the US in terms of addictive gaming. we got Rye Lane. It's basically two youths trying to navigate the dating scene in London. Both are their worst, seeing the best in each other, and not in this movie's writing. We have Malum. Imagine an old jailhouse, but haunted. Enjoy a series of horror tropes inside a creepy prison. Then we got this next movie. It's called Kill Boksoon. It is basically Kill Bill, but also, remember Squid Game, but slice of life comedy balancing work and life of an assassin. She may not be good at life skills, but she sure knows how to pew pew with the rest of us. And finally, we got Summoning Sylvia. It's like somebody wants to make a movie and decides to do it for the fun of it. But this one is about a gay bachelor party that goes wrong in this horror slasher film. So those are the movies that are coming out this weekend. For more information, do whatever. Look at your listings. Probably you'll see it on TV or some ads or anything like that. But other than that, I'm going to wrap up, and I'm going to tell you guys about my next Dubbin stuff. This is from the 1955 movie Treasure of Fear.
And he told me to recycle my can, and I was mad.
You said I look good in red. Red's my least favorite color.
Okay, guys. I didn't know free-flowing of opinions were gonna get so judged so harshly.
You think you can come from a big city and tell us how to work?
Leave him alone. He just doesn't know our ways. The only way I see him going is the way out of here.
Listen, I just want to know where the nearest apothecary shop is. What's the big deal? In my reading, I determined that apothecary is alternative medicine.
Alternative medicine?
How do I put this? Listen, lady. There are certain ways and certain natural remedies to all sorts of things. But a doctor is...
I can't wait for you to get old enough so I can reject you.
As a child, I don't see myself ever getting old.
I say, our guest staying in this fine establishment has problems.
Here we go again. Oh, pardon me. I should probably get to my room. 'Twas no accident that you were booked here, and yet you treat me like I'm some kind of accident. What's the deal? What's going on?
Oh, it isn't you per se. It's just, how can I explain this? Professor, what word would you describe him?
A tourist. But not quite any tourist. A tourist who has the beat on local politics, and...
Is that a big deal?
He's, I could explain more, but I got to go.
Professor, wait up! Oh. Why are men always slamming doors in my face?
Well, maybe we should... Whoa, that was weird.
Oh, I'm sorry. The editor really liked wipes instead of crossfades.
Okay, then. So this is my room, eh? Let me give you a word of advice. Don't talk to people. I cannot talk. It's America, isn't it? I can't just say what's on my mind, like you're really pretty and
compliments work on me just fine, but
I don't know what I'm doing. I lost my job. I just have enough money for this hotel. Then after that, forget about it. I have nowhere to go after this. You know, the thing you're supposed to do a lot of times, if you can't make it in the big city, you should try to go small.
Like a small town?
You know, like a small town girl, big city boy, a real Hallmark kind of movie.
Or like that one karaoke song that everyone likes to sing.
Grandma got run over by a reindeer?
Oh, I was just gonna say Journey, but...
Oh, Journey, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I'm just a small town girl.
That don't impress me much.
I don't think you're singing the right song. What songs do you know? I listen to the Beatles, even though it's banned down here in the South.
Well, from somebody who's not in a place where it's banned, I can clearly say that the Beatles are somewhat overrated. But they played an important part in history. Well, I got to go contemplate my life.
Oh, that's really nice. I hope you have a fun time here, staying here, and then when your money runs out, bye.
She was nice.
Hey,
huh?
hey, come over to my room.
Oh no, I was just gonna grab something to eat.
I got Bionicle.
What generation do you got of Bionicle?
Well, I got the Gen 1, I got the Gen 2 with the armor.
Zon and Fenrak?
And there's more, come on.
All right, the headphones are on. Time to get serious, because I'm always serious here on Wake Up Missoula. Kicking things off, we got some things that are happening within the city of Missoula. John Canto, City Council, reflects on the consent agenda item that addresses a resolution that will put Missoula's money towards a testing strip for opioids and fentanyl. So this is what he had to say.
I'm not super comfortable with this. I think, one, the testing strips, yeah, I'm sure they do their job. I'm sure they're good at what they do. I think the trouble that I have is just, I feel like we're enabling people with drugs. And if there's a problem with doing drugs, that should be the individual's choice and consequences of what they do. By supplying these strips, the only reason why I'm going for it is there may be an economic part of it that's beneficial to the city, not having to pay for emergency room visits and things like that.
Yep. So testing strips have been a major part of trying to handle the fentanyl epidemic that's been going on here as well. This was a reaction to Danielle Carlino's presentation last Wednesday, which I chose to kind of overlook, but really focused on the increase of overdoses in Montana from 2021 to 2022, which saw an upwards of doubling from 50,000 to over 100,000 confiscated fentanyl seized in the state. We just we basically just the other week we had a guy who was found with 126 pills get arrested over the spring break, and many folks are getting access to the overtly dangerous drug that before was meth, and even before that was, you know, crack cocaine. Fentanyl is a very potent drug, as its chemicals are able to get a person higher faster, so a lot of those used to waiting for that high to get the additional doses results in a major increase in overdoses. So the $88,000 Missoula is putting towards this from the Johnson & Johnson settlement money Missoula got earlier this year would allow for people to test their drug for fentanyl and other potential opioids to help reduce overdoses. But John Condos believes that this product, the drug user, protects the drug user and helps them continue through their march towards this dark path. So no public comment from the consent agenda or non-items beyond this. So finally, the city moves to acquire the Ten Spoon Winery in the form of their easement. Gwen Jones, a city council president, reflects on this easement.
So we have some things kind of coming to a head right now, and I guess that's why I looked at this, looked hard at this, because we have competing interests, as Ms. Cheryl mentioned. We have to balance those competing values, competing interests, and I think it's going to intensify in the future. So my thoughts are, I think this is a good project. I think we should do it, but in the future, if we have conservation easements that are within the city limits, I think not only should the Open Space Advisory Committee take a look at the proposal, but also the planning board, because the bottom line is this is a land use decision, and we should be getting that level of input also, because then we have to have tough discussions on the council floor of housing versus conservation, and we'll figure it out. But I think we should use the structures that are in place, and I think having the planning board weigh in would be helpful. I also want to just discuss the fact that we're doing holistic code reform, which means we're looking at our entire code and what we need to change in our code to not only streamline it, but to incentivize the kind of development that we want and actually see it happen.
Okay, so definitely a lot of the bigger issues is that the city of Missoula was basically acquired a good amount of acreage up in the Rattlesnake prime real estate kind of area, and part of the easement would basically go towards protecting the ag land, former winery, Ten Spoon Winery, to basically kind of keep it on regardless of Gwen Jones' bigger picture ideals. In the end, the city set aside 20 acres of this open space in the Rattlesnake area to keep both ag land for preserving city green space and by conjunction Ten Spoon Winery. Just as the land becomes protected by green space property next to the I-90 off Deer Creek are up to rezoning. So this means homes between 20,000 square feet and 40,000 square feet will be built near the Bonner, near the highway area. Laura Stevens, Community Planning and Housing, reflects on the benefits of this particular area in this presentation.
This rezoning encourages an appropriate use of the land because it would allow low-density residential and agricultural development in character with the relatively rural surroundings, will protect the adequate provision of light and air, and will preserve some of the limited existing agricultural land within city limits.
Okay.
The current R20.
Okay, so part of this is going further into detail. The planning board would originally make these recommendations for city council for approval in the past, but state law reflects that the city must review and vote on these items regardless of committee input. And so this has become basically, over the last year or so, planning board has basically been kind of curtailed underneath the city in terms of like planning and meeting and stuff like that, because planning board was created for the purpose of bringing this forward to the city council for final approval, but now the city has to have more in-depth discussions about certain rezoning and planning. The planning board would have taken hours to come to the conclusions for. So part of that made it a little bit, some of these meetings a little bit longer to talk about this, but Joe Deinert, landowner representative, talks about this particular project and what they're planning on moving forward.
Trying to fine tune exactly what definition the B business and B buildings would fall under. That's probably the biggest, most important piece of context here. And city staff did determine that the interpretation of the code has bees under agriculture animal, which Lauren did cover. It's a slight difference, but it means a lot when you're trying to construct a building to help run your business.
Okay, this is just kind of like a run-of-the-mill kind of deal. They already had a plan going forward from 2021, but were able to get some groundwork done for this. They spoke more about this on Wednesday. As the Mullen area build project is coming to fruition, TEDs are showing up for about 33 units of townhouse exemption development. So townhouse exemption development isn't, or TEDs as they're called, hasn't necessarily been in the mind's eye or the city's planning for a lot of things, but because of the pandemic, a lot of other things, a lot of projects that are moving forward in the first place, TEDs are kind of being quasi-grandfathered in because it doesn't go along the lines of the growth policy that Missoula implemented a couple years ago. So Madsen Matthias, associate planner with CPDI, talks about this site in which they're going to be building these TEDs.
For Hillgate Village West, the applicant is proposing a 33-unit development with each dwelling unit on their own townhome ownership unit. Proposed building types include detached houses, 2-unit townhouses, and a 4-unit townhouse. The subject property is inside the urban growth area, the utility service area boundaries, and the air stagnation zone. The property will be served by city sewer and water and is located within an established service area for emergency services. The proposal includes both alleyways and recreation area as common area for all units.
Okay, so if you take a look at this map a little bit further, you know, Mary Jane Boulevard, as they're building more and more upon this former farmland, Flynn Lane next to the schools, and a couple other roads along the way too. But you know, this whole area right here is going to be more in line with the build inward density kind of housing as it's getting further and further into Mullen Road from there. There are some houses there. One of the big things about moving the Mullen Build project was a lot of the mixed use kind of deal. Madison also talks about the bigger picture of the neighborhood to deal with much of the density moving forward with this, basically this whole brand new neighborhood.
The Swatipcane Area Master Plan recommends a neighborhood unit type of community center. The community center neighborhood unit type allows for a neighborhood size of 60 to 160 acres and between 10 to 40% of T4O neighborhood general open, T4R neighborhood general restricted, and T3 neighborhood edge, while allowing only 0 to 15% of T5 mixed use center transect zone. Most of these allow townhouses, while all of them allow duplexes and detached homes. The Swatipcane Area Master Plan refers to this area as being an important connection between Flynn Lane and Mullen Road and providing an opportunity for kids to walk or ride their bikes to Hillgate School.
Okay, so if we go back to the slide, hold on, there we go. So like the proposed area, this red area was where the townhouses were, just to give a little perspective, and then just a whole larger area in which everything, because everything that is currently built across from the school. The school's right here, and then right here is a lot of that neighborhood, England Boulevard. Then you get further down, you got to Reserve Street around here, and then all these businesses around, basically around here, and Major Street, and then you go further up. And, without getting into too much detail, sorry, my audio is all over the place today. All right, a little bit better. Okay, cool. I'm just trying to make sure that my audio is somewhat balanced with everything else going on here. So let's move on. Let's move forward. Madsen also spoke about the TED sunsetting as a whole, because many of the standards we live in today with the high density already in place are making TEDs obsolete in correlations with Missoula's plans already. So TEDs were basically a tool that the city utilized to be like, we need more high density affordable housing. These are nice starter homes, and basically became essential during the many of the major affordability housing crash and everything like that. But then as the city was looking into more means of better utilizing MRA, other organizations, like tax increment financing as a whole, to kind of like, how to build better density and just better houses in general. Not to mention the more flexibility that the TEDs kind of just quickly ignored, because a lot of the whole point of TEDs was the townhouse exemption development, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of things that were exempt from these developments, and so there wasn't much to be regulated, because it was made as a streamlined source for helping developers build homes. So anyways, without further talking a little bit more about this, because the city of Missoula doesn't really have a taste for TEDs as much as they used to anymore. Jessica Miller, we're going back into the legislative update, because they're talking a lot of different things and a lot of different bills that are affecting not only TEDs and other housing options, but also giving the illusion of options with there's somewhat some restrictive things moving on forward. So without further ado, Jessica Miller from the Office of the Mayor gives us a taste of what our state government is up to.
Senate Bill 523 is generally revised tax increment financing laws, and that one had a hearing today over in Helena. That one would completely change our entire tax increment financing program. So those bills have all come up in the last couple of weeks, and they're all still in committee and either had hearings in the last week or will within the next couple of days.
Okay, so yeah, that was just one of the things. And TIF, for many of you who don't already know, tax increment financing is a way that the city have been utilizing developers to basically build infrastructure and better sidewalks and lights and just kind of things, just to give city input to be like, hey, if you do this, we'll give you a tax break for that. And so that's kind of what they did. And some people don't like it, because it kind of is the idea of like giving money to developers and giving them a tax break to develop. But unfortunately, it kind of feels, and then at the time, it was probably one of the only tools the city could use to help leverage, mitigate blight, or just make the site a little bit more palatable for new businesses and new housing to be built. So that's, sorry, that's like word pop, that's so many different words popping out, but that's kind of how I've interpreted it. It's complicated. It's a tool that the city has been using to kind of improve Missoula's development in the future. So Jessica Miller also talks about the eliminating representation for wards. So sometimes in the city of Missoula we have 2 representatives per each ward, and the state law wants to start lessening that to have about 1 ward representative per ward. So this is Jessica Miller on that.
We have Senate Bill 381. It requires, that's the one that would require 1 city council member per ward of first-class cities, and we have talking points for our lobbyist on that. And Senate Bill 420, which would require the election of city officials on even-numbered years, and we have our lobbyist ready to testify on that one as well tomorrow, against that one as well. So we are testifying against both of those.
Okay, so that's 2 of the bills that would affect our election cycles, not to mention how we govern our city by just basically having the amount of representatives for the city of Missoula. Is that a good? Is that bad? I don't know. Who knows? 2 new bills were introduced. Also is the 8 House Bill 825, affordable housing, and 829 is for workforce housing credit, which the city of Missoula supported and is on track right now for being passed. A big one that would support Missoula, according to Jessica Miller, was Senate Bill 551, the AKA tourist tax that Missoula has been trying to get in terms of getting additional revenue for covering hotel stays, restaurants, and car rentals for additional revenue to help Missoula alleviate the tax burden for several additional services towards tourists that would originally be given. So one of the things that Wednesdays with the Mayor, if you haven't seen those, it's every fourth Wednesday of the month. This MCAT films those. One of the big takeaways from a couple of those meetings that Josh Slotnick, county commissioner, came out and spoke in favor of a tourist tax, basically saying that Missoula has about 3.5 million people coming through our city every year, just visiting and all that kind of stuff, and we're not taking advantage of getting any additional taxes on them that would go to alleviate. And the way he kind of phrased it is the turnaround is that if we have about 120,000 people in Missoula County, and we basically pay for 160,000 people because at any given time, there's an additional 40,000 people on average that are staying in Missoula basically year-round. So that's one of the things that he was worried about, is that services are already being stretched enough to accommodate the people who live in Missoula, and now we have to accommodate the people who are visiting Missoula. So that's one of the reasons why he wanted to move forward on the tourist tax. So Jessica Miller talks about the uphill battle the city had to contend with getting this tourist tax the ball rolling.
Previously, in the resort tax and in some previous iterations of the tourist tax bill that has come through previous sessions, the definition has been pretty broad, and then there are very specific items that are not included in that. And here the focus is more on that tourist-oriented activity where it's goods or services normally sold to transient visitors or tourists, including rental motor vehicles, services sold by hotels, motels, other lodging or camping facilities, food served or prepared by a restaurant, fast food store, or other food service establishment, food and drinks served by taverns, bars, nightclubs, services provided by a destination ski resort, events such as college or professional sporting games, movies, concerts, performances, guided services such as whitewater rafting, fishing, and hunting trips. So it kind of removes that broad definition that we've seen in some of the previous bills that we've heard some pushback on. And then, of course, there are still a lot of very specific exclusions from here as well.
Yep. So yeah. So just to getting it passed to a point where you can option to get extra money for some of the people that are visiting Missoula to enjoy some of the services and the service industry. So with more detailed bill, Missoula is hopeful to tap in that sweet multi-million-dollar tourist money that tends to go towards businesses. So even if it's just like a hotel tax, imagine you have the 3.8, we'll call it according to some of the records from this particular meeting, 3.8 million people visit Missoula annually, according to recent reports, and you can tax maybe dollar each per person per hotel. That ramps up Missoula's revenue by basically $3.8 million. But Missoula may look into including more, since this has a 3% cap in terms of additional tourist tax revenue. So imagine this. So for every $100, Missoula gets $3, and that could generate upwards of $11.4 million if each of those 3.8 million tourists spend at least $100 each. So think about it in terms of that would generate a lot of revenue. It would alleviate a lot of the tax burden, and even if it's just a 3%, that's quite a bit of money that would go towards the city of Missoula in the long run. So math. In the end, the city went to support the Senate Bill 551, and that's one of the many bills. And speaking of more bills, Daniel Colino has some critiques for Senate Bill 323, and this is what he had to say about that particular bill.
Zoning neighborhoods for only single-family homes has a long history of dividing people on class, wealthy neighborhoods, and pushing people that can't afford a single-family home out of those neighborhoods. It's a very unjust zoning map that we should not uphold as a city. And I understand the idea of local control, and I support local control. But having local control to stop multifamily housing from being built and to uphold these classist, racist zoning maps is not a good use of local control.
Okay, and so in reaction to this, Aaron PN with the community planning talks a little bit more in detail about hold on a second, Senate Bill 323's plan on basically giving the illusion of choice.
In this bill, the state gives us until January 1st, 2024 to get our growth policy revised to meet the mandated zoning requirements so that we would comply. So we would see ourselves quickly come into a situation where we were in non-compliance, and that might actually hold up some development that we would hope to bring before council. We also largely oppose this bill because we have a better option in Senate Bill 382, which Council President Jones mentioned. Senate Bill 382 set some expectations and some criteria for communities across the state, large communities across the state to meet, and essentially choose from a menu of 5 very progressive land use policies that will help move the needle on housing, that allows communities to pick the policies that make the most sense for them based on contextual information, geography, where they're at in their planning and development and growth cycle. We feel like this, the elimination of single family zoning or allowing for up to 4 plexes by right is something that should absolutely be considered as part of that menu of options, and is something that we hope our community can dive deep and have conversations about as part of our comprehensive code reform effort. We feel like that change deserves the level of conversation and planning in our community that SB 382 allows us to have to prepare for a change of that magnitude.
Okay, so yeah, there are many tools that are being put into place, and like you have those 5 options, but that's basically what would be generated across the board in the state of Montana. And so there's just a lot of weird kind of nuanced things that the state of Montana is trying to implement that will affect a lot of communities, not just Missoula, but this is just Missoula's take on this because I live in Missoula, and this is something that I have a vested interest, especially with some of the new development that have been happening in the city of Missoula. I've noticed if you go down Johnson or Kemp Street, they have this weird new kind of development. It kind of looks like you kind of turn inward, and then it's a lot of like strange looking homes, very interesting looking homes, but they're so close to each other. It kind of reminds me of like a modern townhouse kind of look to it, with the garage that takes up pretty much like 40% of the building, and then the rest of it's kind of like upstairs and everything like that. So anyways, that's, there's some places in Montana don't want to look like Missoula just as much as Missoula doesn't want to look like anywhere else. So anyways, we do have some committee meetings, and this is kind of like the legislative update, which basically just be like, this is the information. There's really not much Missoula can really do. We can lobby, we can say, hey, this is not what we want to move forward with, but moving on, we're going to jump right into Committee of the Whole, and they're talking about Missoula Aging Services expansion and changes in their program that help our aging population and those who care for them. Lisa Shepard, Executive Director from Missoula Aging Services, talks about their services, just to give you guys a little bit of a background on what they're up to and what they're doing. So here she.
But even if you don't know much about us, you probably know that we do Meals on Wheels and we help people with Medicare. But we actually have more than 20 programs that help older adults and family caregivers. And those things include things like assistance to get public benefits and connect to not only our services, but to other community services. We provide in-home care to help people age in place, and also respite for caregivers. We have volunteer opportunities for older adults, both within our own organization and connecting to other nonprofits around the community. And we also offer education and planning for older adult years to folks. And then one of the other things that we do is we advocate for the rights of residents of nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Oh,
okay. So yeah, so they do a lot of stuff for aging adults here in the community. And one of the big things that they do is also the Meals on Wheels program. And so many communities, not only Missoula County, but also Ravalli County depends on some of those meals to get delivered to them. Because a lot of times people are homebound, can't leave their homes, and they don't really have that connection to be able to have their children or family or friends around to deliver some of those meals or even go grocery shopping for them. So the Meals on Wheels program is an important step for a lot of those folks to get the food that they need to just get past, just to get through the day and throughout the weekend as well. So Lisa Shepard also spoke with aging adults and all over services they utilize to help folks, and spoke about issues about living in the city of Missoula. So this is some of the outreach that they've done, and this is what they came up with.
But we also have some serious pain points. The biggest one is housing. That's not going to be any surprise to anybody here. Out of on a 100-point scale, we scored an 8. Yeah, both Missoula and Ravalli County and the area together, and Montana as a whole only scored a 10. So it's a big concern. The other areas are employment and finances. People are very worried about having enough money to meet their basic needs. Also, independent living support. How are they going to get the supports they need to age at home? And then mental health care. Again, none of those are surprising things. I actually brought a handout with me. I didn't think to send it ahead of time. I just thought about it yesterday, but it shows our livability scores for all of the different areas, because each one of these areas has sub areas. And so I have this for you if you'd like one.
All right, so she went further into the presentation, and about 47% of aging adults, anywhere between 55 and over, 65 to 70, various ages, about 47% of them economically have a fixed income of about maybe 50,000, and then while a majority of them have a tendency to fall below the standard median for poverty line. So that was one of the bigger takeaways from it as well, is that, yeah, they're like you hear the concept of, it's a fixed, we're on a fixed income. We can't afford these taxes that keep on going up. So Missoula is a weird place. Renton would have college students come in and out of Missoula on a regular basis, but as we started to feel the financial pinch, being able to jump around became a class issue, and for many aging adults, the biggest financial burden comes to health care, and one major medical bill can make it harder to live in one's homes. The bigger takeaway from the Missoula Aging Services is that 80% of Missoula area seniors are volunteering in some way, which is about $7.5 million worth of volunteering time annually. So they went deeper into statistics, and the big takeaway is that there's a dramatic shift in baby boomers outnumbering younger generations, and with the baby boom in the public schools, the U.S. had to play catch up to facilities to the vast numbers at the time, and that is one of the bigger concerns Missoula Aging Services are bringing in. Missoula has always been a kind of a place for people to retire and raise a family and all that kind of stuff, just not many ways for people to kind of thrive. It's kind of like people want to stay in Missoula because it's a beautiful, wonderful town to live in, but it's not really one of the places to actually, there's no gold in them hills, basically, and you're in a town that has a lot of healthcare workers, and the hospital is a great economic income for the city of Missoula as well. There's not many mills or anything like that, but those are the bigger issues. But as we talk about healthcare workers, they were worked really hard, and many straight up left their profession, and this is one of the things that Ms. Shepard was talking about in terms of the needs and challenges.
Caregiver shortages. If I had to pick one thing that you take away from this presentation, this would be it. We do not have people to care for people. It isn't just Missoula Aging Services, it is industry-wide. It affects our workforce at all levels, but particularly in that direct care space. It affects availability, affordability. It again creates these crises. We also have a shortage of family caregivers. Families provide 85% of care to older adults in this country, but we do not have enough families who can do that, and the ones who are doing it need support themselves. What we used to do before COVID didn't work very well. Now it doesn't work at all. So we are trying to figure out what might work, and we don't have answers yet.
There you go. Sorry to kind of end on a bummer note, but that is one of the major things that have been going on here as well. 10 years ago, I was doing actually a story about nursing, and and basically one of the leading things that where they were talking about was the fact that many of the nurses would have to get a master's degree just to compete with the demand for the amount of health care and education needed to catch up in this modern healthcare age, but it isn't enough to put them in a home when in some places we'll start to feel their crunch, and workers whether they be nurses, CNA, what have you. Many nursing standards today require some form of a master's degree to make a corporate hospital kind of idea. So that was part of the story that they were talking about 10 years ago, but I don't know, it's just like the demand for nurses, the quality in nurses start to decline. You know, there was a lot of pressure, a lot of them straight up quit because of COVID, overworked them. You know, there's just, you know, the biggest takeaway is that the elders are being forgotten, and they're only going to get more folks moving into assisted living or in-home care if they could even afford it. So many things that the city has been trying to help with the rezoning to help more 55 and older living priority. Lower Miller Creek near Generic School specified with developers to have space set for the 55 and older. Franklin to the Fort recently got approval for a senior living facility, which would be 55 and over, and which would be segregated to the 55 and older population to be able to live in those kind of apartments and still remain their independence. So yeah, it's affordable housing, affordable apartments and rents for aging adults as well, because when you retire and then the taxes are going up higher and higher, a lot of times maybe seniors might have to accommodate by selling their homes, and then they can use the money to live off of while they rent from their places, and then they don't necessarily have a lot of money to leave to the next generation, to their families and stuff like that. So there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of issues going on here as well. Whatever retirement plan or any kind of thing can easily just be taken aside from some kind of major medical bill. So far, Missoula Aging Services is looking for more input and trying to get more Asian voices at the table to find out what's best for them. If you want to learn more information about Missoula Aging Services, you could go to missoulaagingservices.org, or to find out more information about the city of Missoula, you can go to ci.missoula.mt.us, where you can find these meetings and more. So ci.missoula.mt.us, it is a wonderful website that you can find how you can get involved, volunteer, just basically be a part of the city of Missoula that you live in. So there you go. That's basically all I have to say about that. There's some time left in the show because you know, this weekend it's April 1st. April Fool's Day is happening on Saturday, so there's a lot of shenanigans that may or may not happen, or a lot of gimmicky things. So let's talk about some of the gimmicky things. Is jumping right up is the First Presbyterian Church of Missoula is doing a rummage sale. Each year they have a rummage sale that helps provide affordable goods in our community, repurposing various supplies, clothing, and more. They're going to be happening at the First Presbyterian Church in Missoula, and it's basically happening now until 5 p.m. and then Saturday, April 1st, it's from 9 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. and then their bag sale is 12 to 3 p.m. just to get rid of everything. So they want to thank the community outreach event proceeds support the mission trips for adults, youth, and families. So, you know, if you want to do that, it's rummage sales. It is springtime, spring cleaning. A lot of places are going to be doing this kind of stuff, and that's going to kick things off this weekend. Make your space walk-in hours at Missoula Public Library first floor, starting at 9:30 this morning. They usually have open hours for a lot of people to 3D print, laser, scanners, all sorts of things happening at the Missoula Public Library. Those are the open hours. You can just walk in and just get your 3D print done. So Empower Place, Missoula Food Bank and Community Center, their hands-on learning center located at the Missoula Food Bank and Community Center, dedicated to nourishing bodies and minds of local children and families. 1 part community center, 1 part science museum, 1 part food hub, and 1 part library. The Missoula Food Bank is open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 1 p.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays, longer days from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then there's also after meals served at 3 p.m. on Tuesday and Thursday. During the summer, they have a kids meal program, so kids eat free who are 18 and under who go to school, and they need a free lunch provided by the Missoula Food Bank. So look out for that. They usually have these pop-up stations in and around the city of Missoula, but Missoula Food Bank is off of Wyoming Street, right downtown next to the Westside Lanes Fun Center. So family fun time at YMCA off of Russell Street. YMCA, it's a family fun time for indoor fun for a lot of families to utilize, starting at 10 a.m. Most Fridays. They also do some Saturday events as well. So Muse Comics and Game March Pinball Tournament. They always have pinball tournaments at Muse Comics at 10 a.m. Tiny Tales and Storytime here at the Missoula Public Library from 10:30 to about 11 a.m. with some hands-on story time, singing, crafts, all sorts of things like that as well. And they do it every Friday from 10:30 to 11 a.m. They also have a storytime component on Saturdays at 10:30 as well, in which MCAT also does their dance party from 11 to 11:45 here in our studio. So Yarns and Watercolor is also happening noon today at 12. Learn to stitch, crochet, and talk to some friends. You can also do some watercoloring. It's a pretty big event just to kind of get some people moving, all this stuff like that. So Southgate Mall is hosting a Candemonium. So Canimals, it's an annual design and build competition between the Missoula Food Bank and Events Community Center. Local business team up with the mentor architects and engineers to design and build giant structures made entirely from full cans of food for viewing at Southgate Mall. So that's going to be happening this weekend. Kicks off today at noon. So Wizard of Oz, MCT for Center for Performing Arts is doing an MCT show at 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. And there's, it's a Missoula Children's Theater take on the Wizard of Oz. It's a rebooted adventure adaptation of this classic story about a small town girl going to a whole new world, dealing with some crazy characters along the way. Women's Law Caucus Silent Auction. Alexander Blewett School of Law is doing a silent auction to support the YWCA Pathway program starting at 5 p.m. tonight. Mama presents Evening in Missoula inaugural gala at the ZAC. Mama is a Montana-based nonprofit that connects and supports up-and-coming musicians through professional development and promotion. Starts at 6 p.m. They strengthen and engage the greater Montana music community. A social will begin at 6 p.m. and the award ceremony starts at 7 p.m. I believe MCAT will be filming that as well. MCAT will be filming a thing at the ZAC tonight at 7 p.m. So rock concert at Monk's is going to be featuring Night Witch, Devolution, The New Nightmare, and Damn the Bad Luck. There's going to be some rock music. Lamb of God is going to be at, I know it sounds like a rock concert, but this is all at Missoula's First Presbyterian Church. They're hosting Lamb of God, which is a not rock concert, but an all-volunteer choir, soloist, orchestra, narrators from many communities and faiths in the area tell a beautiful, inspiring account of the last days of life of Jesus Christ, his atonement and resurrection. Sounds like a good Friday, but also they're doing it on Saturday. So if you miss it tonight, they're having it tomorrow. So Sundog North at the Old Post. Folk music is going to be at the Old Post at 8 p.m. Doing Missoulians at Sunrise Saloon. It's going to be some country music. Saturday stuff and markets. So they'll start the regular farmers market sometime in late April, early May, sometimes maybe getting itching towards some selling those vegetables. But if you want to go check out any kind of markets and stuff, Orchard Homes does a winter's market from 8 to 1 p.m. and also Southgate Mall also does it. So you can do the winter market and maybe see some of those cans the Missoula Food Bank have been putting up this weekend. So all under one roof, family passport program. This is a kind of a partnership with the Missoula Public Library and many of the partners from Families First, MCAT, and also Spectrum Discovery Center. Take a trip downtown and get to know all the 5 under one roof. Okay, here, Families First Learning Lab, communities, Living Lab. So Living Lab and your Missoula Public Library have an offer to get your special stamp in your passport. You basically have this cute little passports, kids wander around, put little stamps in there, and they get or stickers, and they get to have a little fun doing all sorts of things like that. So apart from that, also there's with spring cleaning, there's a lot of other stuff. Missoula Urban Demonstration Project, MUD, as they are known, are doing a tool sale. So if you want tools and you need some more tools in your arsenal, MUD is doing a tool sale starting at 10 a.m. on Saturday. And speaking of Saturday, also at 10 a.m., MCAT does a touring orientation every Saturday to any new prospective filmmakers, movie makers, or heck, even talk show, morning show, whatever. MCAT orientation every Saturday at 10 a.m. And also, MCAT does our dance party from 11 to 11:45 right after story time at the Missoula Public Library here in our studio. There's going to be an Easter egg hunt at the Big Sky High School visitors parking lot. Part of the Big Sky's National Honor Society is hosting Easter egg for pre-K and younger kids. So that's happening at Big Sky High School starting at noon tomorrow. Also, MCAT does a regular drop-ins for kids 1 to 3. It's a workshop for kids to do stop animation. Ceramic April Fool Day Performance Art Open Mic. So the Cymatic Center is going to be at, they're calling all performance and stuff like that. So we have the 11th annual Zach Mini Show starting at 5 p.m. at the Missoula Fairgrounds. The mini show supports artists in the Missoula area. Atomic Shock is going to be playing at Big Sky High School. It's a support cheer and cheerleading groups as they try to fundraise to go on their special trips. And it's held at the ESPN Convention Center in Orlando. Yeah, so I don't know if it's Orlando. I might have just made that up. But anyways, the Big Sky High School is also doing it at 5 p.m. and they're doing a fundraiser to support a spaghetti dinner. So I don't think I have too much to talk about. There's going to be Off in the Woods with at Free Cycles band Lamb of God again at 7 p.m. at the Fresh Presbyterian Church. Imagination Brewing Company is going to have Smith McKay all day. Odyssey of the Stars is going to be a major event that's happening at the MU and University of Montana Theater, or actually Denison Theater, to support a local artist who has made it and has come back to give support for local future artists as well. All right, so that's as far as I can go. For Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and it is time for me to wrap up. See ya.